I'm Jillian for Patch.com, and today I'll be making a butternut squash macaroni and cheese. For this mac and cheese, I'll be using 8 ounces of extra sharp cheddar, 8 ounces of Munster cheese, 6 tablespoons of butter, 8 ounces of shredded butternut squash, 1 shallot, 1 clove of garlic, and then for my spice blend I'll be using 2 teaspoons of ground mustard powder, 2 teaspoons of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. I'll also be using salt and pepper to taste. For the pasta, I'll be using Barilla elbows, and I'll explain in a moment why we're using Barilla in particular. And I'll also be covering my mac and cheese with 1 sleeve of buttery crackers. I'm going to construct this in 2 layers. So we'll start by putting half of the box of Barilla elbows into our 9x13 pan. And as you can see, I've reserved 3 of those 6 tablespoons of butter to melt on the bottom of the pan so that the pasta doesn't stick to the bottom. So I'm just going to evenly pour half of the box and spread it out. And the reason I'm using Barilla is because I've tried a lot of elbows in my mac and cheese, and Barilla is the only one that you don't have to boil, and it comes out al dente. It doesn't come out too crunchy. It comes out firm and not mushy, so that's why I'm using Barilla. So now I'm going to spread all of the cheese with the butter all evenly. So I'm going to do half of the cheddar. And you want to try to get it as even as possible so that every bite of this mac and cheese that you take is going to taste the same and have the same amount of cheese in it. So that looks good for the cheddar. Now I'm going to do the Munster, and I've cubed it in small cubes so that it melts evenly throughout. And with cheese, that's something you can change in your mac and cheese. If you prefer using different kinds of cheeses, go ahead and do that. It's really whatever you prefer for taste. I like the way the Munster melts with the cheddar. The cheddar's sharp enough where it's salty and sharp and has a bite to it. And then the Gouda kind of is smooth and really delicious with the cheddar blend. So now I'm just going to add half of the cubed butter. Did I say Gouda? I meant Munster. Sorry about that. I do also use Gouda. That's another blend I use with cheddar, but you can use whatever you want. Alright, so now I'm going to take my butternut squash, the shredded butternut squash, and FYI, I did spice this a little bit because you don't want to leave the butternut squash unspiced. I just added a little nutmeg, salt, and pepper to taste. And nutmeg is really a natural pairing with the butternut squash. So once half of that's in, I'm going to add half of the mixture of garlic and shallot. And again, spread as evenly as you possibly can. And this is a little bit messy, but really fun to do. Especially with kids. If you have kids, they'll like constructing this mac and cheese too, almost as much as they like eating it. Next comes our spice mixture. And I've had too many mac and cheeses that are bland and just tasteless. And I find that this spice mixture really complements the way the cheese melts and the taste of butternut squash. It's just, it packs a real flavor punch for the mac and cheese. We guarantee this mac and cheese will not be bland. So I'm just going to add a little bit of fresh ground pepper and a little bit of salt. And now I'm going to start layering all over again. So in goes the other half of the box of Barilla elbows. Ooh. All right. And again, the cheese. And the layering really helps to make it all even and taste the same too. So there's the cheese and the rest of the butter. And just make sure you get the cheese spread evenly as possible. Once it melts, it's going to spread out anyway and spread pretty easily because of how small the cubes of cheese are. So next we'll do the butternut squash again. And the butternut squash really complements the extra sharp cheddar because you get a little bit of sweetness in with the bite that the cheddar has. Alright, so just again the shallots and the garlic, the rest of that goes right in there. And the rest of the spices. Make sure to get it everywhere. Okay, now a little more salt, a little bit more fresh ground pepper. And now it's time to add our crackers to the top of the mac and cheese. And these crackers are really buttery and salty and really help to keep the macaroni from being hard and crunchy. You know, the top of the macaroni is going to bake too. So we just want to lock the macaroni in, and that's what the crackers will do. They kind of act as a sealant, but they also act as a sweet, buttery component of the mac and cheese. So you want to just mix these up as best as possible and mush them up. And this is really fun for the kids too. They like to mush the crackers. And since I'm a kid at heart, this is my favorite part. And you want to go ahead and add the whole sleeve, because once you see, it's not that much. All right. And if you see any big parts of cracker, just try to squish them as much as possible. Alright, now I didn't mention that we're going to be adding milk to this recipe, but that's because I don't really have a certain measurement for you of milk. We're just going to keep pouring the milk evenly into the mixture until it's filled right up to the cracker crumble. And pouring the milk last will help all of the spices meld in and mix in perfectly. Alright, so that's good for milk. It's got to be at least 3 cups of milk. So now it's time to put in the oven. I'm going to put this in at 350 degrees for 40 to 45 minutes, or until you can not see the milk anymore and it just looks like solid macaroni and cheese. The macaroni and cheese baked for 45 minutes, and now it's time to taste it. I let it settle for about 10 minutes so that it wasn't totally gooey and that I could put it onto a plate. Wow. That's really, really good. The butternut squash just adds a whole different dimension to normal macaroni and cheese. It's sweet, it's light, it's perfect fit. And the cheese is stringy, yet creamy. It's absolutely delicious. Thanks for watching. See you next time.